Hey, what's up, everybody? I want to welcome you to another episode of the Dreamerspro Daily Recap, where we give you a recap of all of the hot topics that we covered that day. You can catch them in their long format and also catch it fully streaming for free on Apple Podcasts. We produced the show yesterday. There's got a lot of people buzzing and talking about it. We even have people making shows about it and all of that. That video had to do with the LeBron, Bronny James prop video where I said that LeBron is no longer in my top five. And the reason, let me just quickly say why again. The reason that I have decided to remove LeBron James out of my top five is primarily due to his antics. I can't deal with it no more. Like, the antics are too, we've tried, we've overlooked so many different things, but it's just one thing after the other, and I'm just fed up, you know. And another person that made me think about this from this angle is Fitness and Sports Rants. He was talking about the way, like, when we choose to decide what player deserves to go where and where in the rankings, he also decided to talk about them as from their character standpoint. Like, is this honorable? Are these things honorable? He would always talk about honor, and it made me think, like, damn, he's making a good point. He's making a good point because we're talking about the man as well. And he started to make me think about it from that vantage point, and I'm factoring all of that in. I can't deal with LeBron's antics no more, man. It's too much. Too much, right? I'll reorganize my top five or whatever, but for now, man, I can't deal with it. When I said that, a lot of people actually agree with me. But anyway, on to something else. Prior to that, we produced a show that was centered on some comments that Kevin Wiles from First Things First said to Nick Wright. Nick Wright and some of the people out there in the sports media ecosystem, have realized that the Lakers aren't going to be any good this season. They've also realized that players like LeBron and AD are probably going to go out there and get their numbers. But they'll still need someone to scapegoat if the team doesn't perform well. And the name I keep hearing popping up is Rob Pelinka. Nick Wright was doing his usual hit piece on Rob Pelinka earlier this week, where essentially saying that he's an incompetent general manager. That's what they're trying to plant the seed, these guys. So when the Lakers underperform, Laker fans will know who to point their aggression and anger towards. So he was beginning to say that Rob Pelinka is an incompetent general manager. And then Kevin Wiles called him out on a point, which was, but you're always picking him. You're always picking the Lakers. But then something interesting happened this morning. One of our viewers sent me a clip. And this clip was centered on the First Things First reviewing the free agency moves that were made by the Lakers just last season. And during this segment, Nick Wright was doing what? He was praising Rob Pelinka for the fantastic job he did with the Lakers during the offseason. This same Nick Wright that was out there with his fake outrage about how poor of a general manager Rob Pelinka. Now, if some of you don't believe that, like, no, Nick Wright, he wouldn't do that. Nick Wright wouldn't speak out of both sides of his mouth. So what we want to do now is want to play exactly what Nick Wright had to say about the Lakers' free agency moves, and then want to come back and continue on. Take a listen to Nick right here.
And maybe also, by the way, maybe if all things were equal, he still maybe would have rather Dallas. Who knows? Decision. But this idea that the Lakers were able to offer him 4 for $80, they weren't. And as far as the other things the Lakers had going for it, you mocked me yesterday. I do not care.
Don't say it.
Well, I don't know. Here's what Michael Thompson said yesterday on the radio when he was asked about congratulating Clay for going with the Mavs. So here's my question, Wilds. I'm going to ask it because you called it a Rob Pelinka roast session, and I don't mean for that to be the case, but I have a question. Mm-hmm. What does he do?
Rob Pelinka?
Yeah, what does he do, and what evidence do we have that whatever he does, he's good at it? That's my question.
He won a championship.
Okay, so
he built a team that you always seem to pick.
What do you mean?
I mean, when you picked them over Denver, and
I picked
you're
them.
very optimistic about the team that
Denver,
I picked them to. I picked them
if they had beaten Denver, you probably were going to pick them to win it all.
No, I that was I
you would have picked Dallas. If they beat Denver,
I
you would have
said
picked
on the show that
them?
I thought the Lakers would be out of gas if they beat Denver.
So you heard what Nick Wright had to say. Now, I want you guys to listen to Nick Wright just this week talking about how incompetent Rob Pelinka is as a general manager. Take a listen to that.
Here's the new and familiar faces on the Lakers. Vincent, Reddish, Hayes, Prince, and then there's Reeves on a very friendly deal. Rui, and nope, swing and a miss there.
That's Russell Westbrook, but it should be D'Angelo Russell.
D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah.
We'll edit that out for the live show. Don't worry, audience at home, you'll never see it. LeBron tweeted everybody out, including D'Angelo Russell, with an hourglass sign. I think he's waiting on it, or he's a fan of soap operas.
I think he's probably waiting on it.
You never know.
Yep.
How should LeBron feel?
Great. It was a fantastic offseason. Also, he's exhausted because, as everyone knows, he's the GM of the team. Wow. So he's got to work out, he's got to work out, is Austin Reeves going to get an offer sheet from someone? What is the fair value on D'Angelo Russell? All of those things. Because as we know, LeBron James makes all the moves on the team. But this is a team that makes sense. And how do Lakers teams with LeBron do when they have a roster that makes sense? Well, in 2020, they were the number 1 seed on a 60-win pace if they had played an 82-game season and won the championship. In 2021, with that same group, up until Solomon Hill did his somersault into LeBron James' ankle, they were the number 2 seed on a 56-win pace. Last year, post-trade deadline, they were 18-8, a 57-win pace, the number 1 seed in the West for that, in that time frame. And now they make sense. And they didn't have to overpay for anyone. They didn't have to do any of that stuff. So I think that they were the second best team in the West last year. And you could argue in the whole NBA, but certainly in the West. And the team ahead of them got a little worse in Denver because they lost Bruce Brown, and the Lakers got better. And so I think this was an outstanding free agency for Rob Pelinka and the Los Angeles Lakers.
So you heard Nick right. The same Rob Pelinka that he was criticizing for being incompetent at his job is the same Rob Pelinka he was heralding for the job that he did. So the question then becomes, what is it? Is Rob Pelinka a good general manager or not? And I think if you ask Nick Wright, that will depend on which direction the wind is blowing in that moment. The reason, again, that he's now decided to target Rob Pelinka because he's a low-hanging fruit. The Lakers have a pattern, especially ever since LeBron became a Laker. One of the other reasons is that whenever the team underperforms, there must be someone to blame. There must be. It's been the pattern. It is chronic behavior. And now the new one they're going to be blaming is Rob Pelinka for the lack of moves he made throughout the offseason and what he wasn't able to get. He wasn't able to get Klay Thompson. He wasn't able to get this player. Now, here's a wrinkle in all of this. I was listening to Chris Broussard on Nick Wright yesterday. I was so disappointed with Chris Broussard listening to him yesterday because they were talking about Klay Thompson and all these other free agents moving around. And it's like there's just this reluctance from these guys to be honest on television and say what the issue is. They spoke about every single thing about why the Lakers don't get free agents, except the obvious elephant in the room, which was LeBron. Do you realize how many stars are turning down the opportunity to play with LeBron James? Now the new one is Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield looked over, he was like, what's going on over there in LA? Nah, I think I'm going to go ahead and pass and I'm going to go to the Golden State Warriors. No one wants to discuss that. Instead, they want to blame everything under the sun except the obvious. Do you think that these NBA players are stupid? Do you think they don't see what happens when you become a Los Angeles Laker and things don't go well? That they're ultimately going to get... The Lakers with LeBron are the only team in the NBA that when the team never performs, they blame role players. They never point they never point the finger at the real players. It's always the role players. This is what they do. This is exactly what they do. So players are beginning to look at this and be like, who wants to be here? Like when we're talking about the Lakers coaching job, who wants that job? Like, let's just be honest here for a second. Who wants that job? Who wants to be labeled the scapegoat? Who? But nevertheless, these guys are dancing all around the table acting like as if they don't know the real reason why a lot of these guys are like, nah, I don't want to be a part of this circus. And that's what the Lakers season is going to turn into. This year is going to be one of the biggest clown shows we've seen in a very long time. is going to be a total clown show. Totally. And you have delusional, listen, some LeBron fans are just something to behold. There's something to behold. Do you know that there are some LeBron James fans on the internet today actually out there making arguments for why they believe LeBron James at this point of his NBA career is a better basketball player than Luka Doncic? Folks, looks like we got some beef once again. And this one is between the two Charleses, Charles Barkley and Charles Oakley. Now, if you know anything about Charles Barkley, you know that he is one of the most outspoken figures in sports media, right? He recently announced that this was going to be his last year on television. We covered that, and other voices and other platforms covered that as well. And Charles Barkley is known for his raw takes. He's also known for his humor. And a lot of people like him. But there are also some people that dislike him. And one of those people has been disliking Charles Barkley even before he made it to television. And that's one of his former rivals, former NBA enforcer, Charles Oakley. Now, Charles Oakley has made no qualms. He is not a fan of Charles Barkley whatsoever. There have been various rumors and stories of them having physical altercations off the court, blah, 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 blah. So what happened? This morning, I came across a clip from, and I want to get this right, Brandon Scoop B. Robinson. Brandon Scoop B. Robinson. And he caught up with Charles Oakley. I don't know where he met him. But it seemed like it was a brief interview where he was just kind of like passing by and he was asking him a range of questions. He asked him about Bronny James. He asked him about LeBron James. They talked about the Lakers. But at the very end of the clip, he then decided to ask Charles Oakley to weigh in on the news of Charles Barkley deciding to retire from television next year. And man, when Charles Oakley started to speak, man, he took some vicious shots at Charles Barkley, you know, as a person and about his career. And I was like, damn. So what we want to do now is we want to play exactly what Charles Oakley had to say about Charles Barkley's less than a 30-second clip. I want you guys to listen to it, and we'll come back and react to his comments. Take a listen to that there.
Charles Barkley, a contemporary of yours, said that after this season coming up, that he's not going to do any more TV. Do you buy it?
Who give a about Charles Barkley? He need to go to the gym and worry about his health. But his mouth is going to get him in trouble. But, I mean, he's a clown, point blank. He looked for attention. The stuff he said now, he would never say it back in the day about no player. But somebody would have hit him in the mouth.
So you heard what Charles Oakley had to say. Charles Oakley ain't playing with Charles Barkley, man. What's funny is that after I saw the clip, I went back to YouTube to search some of the altercations between Charles Barkley and Charles Oakley on the basketball court. And they've had a lot of scuffles. They've had a lot of scuffles. And if I'm being honest with you, based on what I saw, I didn't see Charles Barkley backing down from nobody. I saw Charles Barkley standing his ground. As a matter of fact, in one of those clips, I saw Charles Barkley initiating the nonsense. One of the clips, he kind of like slapped Oakley in the face, and then he tried to rush him. I never saw Charles running away from him or trying to hide from him or nothing. I saw him fight. Now, there's this story that kind of circulating that Charles Oakley said it, that he slapped Charles Barkley or whatever. I don't know, right? I wasn't there. I don't know. Maybe people within the business will be able to verify that, or people that were there. I don't know, right? I never heard this. What I do know is that these gentlemen are not fond of one another. They're just not fond of one another. And it's just, the irony is that they're both called Charles, which is just so ironic, right? But they cannot stand each other. Charles Oakley, I think, thinks Charles Barkley is a loudmouth, right? I think he thinks he's a loudmouth. He talks a lot of junk or whatever it is, and he says some stuff about players. And I think I'm not really sure what Charles Barkley thinks about Charles Oakley. As someone looking at this situation from afar that doesn't know these gentlemen, I think Charles probably views Charles Oakley as the bully that won't intimidate him. That's how I view it. I don't think Charles Barkley is scared of Oakley in any way, shape, or form. I've seen Charles want to go at players bigger than him. I've seen Charles throw hands on the basketball, like throw hands, not like push, shove. Yo, man, you get in my chest. No, Charles Barkley was throwing them hands, and I think if he ever met Oakley anywhere, he would throw hands with. I don't see Charles Barkley as being a sucker. Like, that's one thing we can't say. Like, as a sucker, I don't see it. There's no evidence of it, like none. Now, you may not like him, right? And there are a lot of people that don't like Charles Barkley for their own reasons. I have no issues against him. I think he's hilarious. As a matter of fact, I think he's the funniest guy in the business. It's between him and Shannon Sharpe. Those are the two funniest people in sports media, and that's not even close. And I think because Charles has so many classic one-liners, man. So many. So many. The churros, them big old women. He got that one. He got the, what's the other one? Street Clothes, Anthony Davis. He got the triple single one, which is just, I mean, that dude is hilarious. Oh, my God. But Charles Oakley ain't feeling him, right? He ain't feeling him. He feel like, yo, son, like you talk a lot. You talk a lot and you need to, keep your mouth closed. But I don't see that ever happening. Even if these two guys were to ever cross paths, I don't see Charles Oakley somehow getting Charles Barkley to stop talking. I don't see that. Charles also has his reputation too, huh? He got a few screws loose too. Like, go Google him. He got some of his things right. So, what I want to know from you guys is the following. First of all, what do you think about what Charles Oakley had to say? Do you think it was necessary? Because I read through some of the comments, and some people were actually on Charles Barkley's side, saying like, "Bro, you sound a little bit jealous. Like you saying all of this about Charles, but Charles out here getting bread, doing things, working." He's like, "What are you doing?" That's what they said. Go through the comments. You can search it on Twitter. This morning I was doing some research and I came across an article on awfulannouncing.com. And it was centered on some comments that Shaquille O'Neal made on the big podcast where he was addressing a few things. The first thing he was addressing was the fact that he was already aware. He was already in the know about the fact that the Lakers were going to hire JJ Redick. So he knew that already. Not a big shocker from a Laker. That's not surprising. However, while he was talking, he then brought up an issue that was plaguing him. And the issue he brought up was, why did the Lakers decide to hire JJ Redick over more qualified candidates? Why did the Lakers decide that the best course of action was to overlook coaches who probably weren't even head coaches but had some level of coaching experience from an assistant coach level? Why the Lakers decided to overlook all of those guys and instead go with a guy in JJ Redick who has never coached any team anywhere? And I was like, you know what? Shaq brings up a very important point. And it also makes me think about how people in the media just up there twerking it up all. I mean, just basically disturbing the peace. Everybody up now, everybody's saying the way they talk about JJ Redick on ESPN, you would think is the second coming of Phil Jackson. We've even heard reports that the Lakers are looking to turn JJ Redick into what Pat Riley was. Now, for those of you who didn't hear what Shaq had to say in terms of him questioning the Lakers, I want to play for you now. I'm going to come back and react to what Shaq had to say. Take a listen to his comments here.
You knew?
Oh, yeah, I knew the whole time. And first, let me say this, because I wasn't aware until late. But it makes it look crazy that a guy with no experience can overshadow a guy like Sam Cassell, who's been in the league 15 years, this and that. So just let me say that. No disrespect to JJ, but I think Sam should also be able to get the same looks. But I'm happy for JJ. A lot of pressure. Winning games will not be good enough. Expectation when you take that job, when you take the Miami Heat job, when you take a job where there's a lot of talent, the expectation is to win championships. What kind of coach is he? Don't know. I saw something funny on Instagram that said he was a assistant coach for a Brooklyn fourth grade girls team. That's his only coaching experience.
Yeah.
He
coaches his son, I think.
For me as a player, if I didn't respect the coach, it was easy for me to turn my 100% down. Let me explain. I'm going to give you 100 anyway. But if it's a situation where I know we're not going to go, hundreds is hard to maintain. You know what I mean? That's why when I played for a guy like a Phil Jackson, I already knew his resume. So I knew, because I've sat there and watched him go to the finals 6 times with Michael and win 6 times. So if he says, stop doing this and do something else, I'm going to do it every time because he knows what he's talking about. That's why when I went to Miami, you play for a guy like Pat Riley. He says, do something, you do it, and it wins because I understand their resume. You know, for a guy like me who got all the blame when things didn't go right, if you didn't have that championship experience and I can question you, it was always hard for me to believe in you.
JJ had a few really funny moments, was asked if he wanted to dispel any misconceptions about him. He said, quote, I don't give a f-. So he was very much still JJ Redick. Just by the way, on Sam Cassell is so valued that the Boston Celtics gave him a huge raise so that no one could poach him. But he has been like the next possible head coach for a while.
That's awesome.
Shaq, I was curious. In that press conference, JJ said that he did not talk to LeBron about the job. Do you believe him?
Yeah, I'm starting a website called yeahright.com. Everything goes through LeBron at the Lakers.
They were doing a podcast together.
Exactly. Everything goes through LeBron, and I know that for a fact because when you're in that position as leadership, you get to know everything. So I was in that seat for a long time. Nothing went without my permission. The only time something went down without my permission is when they cut my head and traded me. And then Kobe took over, and nothing went down without his permission. So I know everything that goes on is definitely discussed with LeBron and Rich and those guys. So, you know, it's professional of him to say that we didn't talk about it, but yeah, okay.
So you bring up, you heard what Shaq said, and I think he brings up some important points. I want to go back to an article I read this week, I forgot the source, that was centered on the Lakers president, or I guess the person running the organization, in Jeannie Buss, where the article was essentially saying that Jeannie Buss is too nice to be a billionaire. That's what the article was saying. It was saying that Jeannie Buss is too nice to be a billionaire. And essentially, I think what they were saying was, given the fact that the perception is that LeBron and these guys are the ones that are running the Lakers organization, or rather, we don't even know who's running the Lakers organization, that it reflects poorly on her. Now, why is this important? Here is just my personal view. I believe that when you're in a leadership position, the last thing on your mind should be about whether or not how nice of a person you are. I think that should be the last thing on your mind. Am I a nice person? I think that shouldn't be a priority when you're thinking. I think instead, the most important thing you should be thinking about as a leader is results. That should be the number one focus, in my personal view, of a leader. Are we achieving results? And if we aren't, certain steps and actions need to be made. If your goal is to be the nicest leader in the world, you're not going to be a very successful one. Because the fact of the matter is, people don't respond to nice. People respond to force. People respond to consequences. That's what moves people. Fear of losing my job if I don't deliver. That's what moves people. You being a nice guy or a nice girl is not really what's going to motivate. This is the reality of it. Because after a while, this girl, she's a pushover. We're going to come, I'm going to show up and do this later, I'm going to do that, and then nothing's going to happen. And I think that seems to be the perception of Jeannie Buss. But let's get to the larger question. Back to Shaq. Why did the Lakers decide to hire JJ Redick? Look, if we look at the current status quo of the Lakers, this is now their 5th head coach in the last, 7-8 years. They just finished firing Darvin Ham, who they employed for just 2 seasons. I think first year he made it to the Western Conference Finals. Second year he lost in the first round to the NBA champions. They fired him, some people are saying prematurely. They now go out there and get a coach who has absolutely zero coaching experience. And as a matter of fact, JJ Redick is now filling out his coaching staff with assistant coaches that were actually coaches. Go figure. Nate McMillan, Scott Brooks, these are his assistant coaches. Meanwhile, JJ has never coached anything anywhere. But the Lakers nevertheless decided to go in that direction. Now, the question then becomes, who's to blame if things go to hell? Who's to blame? Are we going to blame LeBron James and Clutch Sports? Or are we going to blame JJ Redick? Or are we going to blame Lakers management? Here's how I would decide who gets the lion's share to blame. Personally, I would blame the Lakers organization and they will get the lion's share. Do you know why? Because they're the ones making the decision. They're the ones. You can have a staff, you can have a high-level manager come and make a recommendation to you. But ultimately, it's your decision to go with their recommendation or not. It's your decision. LeBron is not the one paying JJ Redick. The Lakers are. Now, if you don't have a spine or a backbone and the player can come to you and say, this is the guy we want, and you don't, well, you must know everything, so go ahead. Then again, that's on you. But it doesn't mean that that player is not culpable of any blame. Of course, they played a role in it. Especially that player then complains about, oh, we're not where we're supposed to be. To me, this comes down to Jeannie Buss and the Lakers management, which I don't really think there's any, if I'm being honest with you. The Lakers decided to hang a banner of the in-season tournament. Just imagine. The Los Angeles Lakers, who have 17 NBA championships, decided to hang an in-season tournament banner in the rafters. That should tell you everything you need to know about the standards and how they have eroded of the Lakers. That tells you everything you need to know. So to Shaq's question, why didn't they go ask the management? They're the ones that hired him.